Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Good morning, whatever it might be. Good evening. I know we got some people from Europe on the call. Hey, Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. And we're going to get going here in about 10 seconds. But what I want to ask you right now, while we just wait for everybody else to get on the line, what are you doing to overcome or prevent yourself from falling into a summer slump? We'll get going here in 10 seconds. Hey, let's get started here. My name's Mark Hunter, the sales hunter, and you're watching another one of the webinar sessions brought to you by InfoFree. I can't say enough about the quality of the data, the ability they have to help you. Hey, I asked you the question, what are you doing to avoid the summer sales slump? And I'll tell you what, overcoming objections is one of the key reasons. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. You know, I get to work with a lot of clients all over the world. It is amazing. Last week I was in Nashua, New Hampshire, down in Florida. This week it's Seattle, it's Portland. I'm all over the country, all over the world. And every time I talk to salespeople, it always comes down to, hey, how do I overcome overcome objections? It's one of the big issues that people talk about a lot. Now, I got so buried in putting together the content for this that I didn't even put together any PowerPoint. Is that okay? You okay with that? But that's okay. But here's what I want you to focus in on. I want you to think about this, and I'm going to walk you through a series of different pieces here of how you overcome objections. And just like we've done in the past, I want you to go ahead and use the chat board over there to go ahead and send in your respective questions. But what I want to do is I want to share with you, first of all, what are the 5 principles of overcoming objections. Now, before I jump into this, let me just kind of set the framework, because one of the challenges I see is that we run into problems with objections because we've been prospecting the wrong people. That's why I talk about high profit prospecting in the book. And you've seen this slide before. I've had it up here before. You know, you can't turn a Walmart shopper into a Nordstrom customer. And so many times we have to ask ourselves, is the objection we're receiving because we're dealing with the wrong prospect? And it's amazing when I get my prospecting process right, it is amazing how it eliminates 30 to 40% of my objections. Now, with that said, let's kind of dig into this and let's talk about what are the 5 principles of overcoming objections. These are 5 principles that I say really lay the groundwork. 1, objections are a closing waiting to occur. Now think about this for a moment. Customers do not raise an objection unless they're doing one of 2 things. A, trying to shut you down completely, or they're interested in trying to go further. Now, I'm always going to say it's the latter, okay? I'm always going to say it's the latter. And I'm always going to say that for one very simple reason, because I feel when they raise an objection, it is a closing waiting to happen. Now, an objection is not an excuse that you hear after the deal's been closed, okay? That's totally different. This is an objection you hear while the sale is in motion, okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, no is never permanent. I don't care how many times you tell me no. I don't care. It's okay. No is never permanent. It is only a moment in time. Too many times what happens is people hear an objection and they view that, well, I can't overcome that. I can't get around that. So they then walk away from it. I will take a prospect who has given me an objection anytime over having to find a new prospect. Because at least if they've given me an objection I can overcome, I'm further down the road than having to find a new prospect. That is, as long as they're a prospect that fits in my funnel. Go back to that initial slide I talked about in terms of you can't take a Walmart shopper and make them a Nordstrom customer. 3, an objection is not a statement about price. Now, I want you to really stop and think about this. It is not a statement about price. We as salespeople tend to automatically assume when we hear an objection, it's price oriented, and therefore what I've got to do is I've got to lower my price. I've got to lower my price. Objections and price have nothing to do with each other. Nothing to do. And I'll walk you through some ways here in a bit to kind of keep those 2 separated. Number 4, The objections you receive are a reflection of the prospects you have. Now, this goes right back to that whole Walmart Nordstrom piece. The objections you get are a reflection of the prospects you have. And this is why one of the ways that I say is that, yes, it is going to be recorded, so don't worry about it. You will get the replay just like everybody always does. Anyway, hey, here's the whole piece. Many times what happens is you get an objection because you're dealing with the wrong type of customer. You're dealing with the wrong type of prospect. Get your prospecting process in line first, and it minimizes the types of objections you get. 5, use objections as a way to increase value. Now, go back to number 3, what I said. Number 3 was an objection is not a statement about price. See, an objection is a statement about value. The reason the customer is raising the objection is because they're not seeing value in what you're saying. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to use this as my means to increase my value. This is why I say objections have nothing to do with price. If I don't respond to the objection, then it does have everything to do with price. But the problem I get into, now I was a victim of this. I was a victim of this early on in my sales career a lot. I would hear an objection. And I felt the easiest way to overcome this was to sit there and lower the price. No, it's not to lower the price. Hey, do you mind if I share the recording with our colleagues? You bet. Share it with anybody you want to. That's why I do these. I do these free. I got a great sponsor. They're happy. And so believe me, Tom, share them with anybody you want to. But here's this whole piece. It's not price oriented. Answer the objection, create added value. Now, okay, let's now go into the next step, which is where I want to talk about in terms of when responding to an objection. Never feel the way to overcome an objection is by lowering the price. Okay, you have to get this off the table completely. Off the table completely. Don't. You never respond to an objection with price unless you have a completely different product offering that is better suitable. Let me give you an example. I may be talking to you and you're my prospect, and I'm wanting to put you into this package X, and you object, okay? And you object. I may be able to answer that objection and increase value, but in the end still say, you know what, I'm better off going over here with a different option, with a different package. That's something completely different. But what I'll argue, and that different one has a different price, okay? But what I say is, I'm not going to sit here and play with it as a price situation. 2, when you hear an objection, it's not what you heard, it's what the customer means. Now, this is very key. Many times what happens is we will hear an objection. And as a salesperson, we see things from this perspective, but the customer's talking from this perspective. And as a result, we're not linking up. This is why I always say, I always restate the objection as you heard it. Now, do not restate it word for word. This, again, is a big mistake people make. People say, well, customer service is all about doing everything the customer. No. Great customer service and closing the sale is about making sure that you and the customer, you and the prospect, are on the same page. So the customer shares with you an objection. I'm going to restate to them as I heard it. But here's the piece. After I restate that, I pause, I wait. And then I ask for clarification. I always ask for clarification. How do I ask for clarification? I might say, could you explain that more? Could you give me another example? Why? How come? Something. Now, here's why. Many times what happens is people will throw out an objection, but that's not really their objection. The objection we always hear the most is your price is too high. Okay, your price is too high. It's not typically that the price is too high. It's just that the value is too low. So what I want to do is I want to sit there and say, okay, hold it. Now, wait, you made the comment that price is too high. Why do you say that? What? Help me understand better. Now, you notice I did that with a level of facial expression, eye contact, and hand movement. because I'm being sincere about it, connecting with you. Even if you're on the phone, I can still sit there and say that with sincerity. Now, why? Because it's not that the price is too high, it's that the value is too low. So what I'm trying to get to is I'm trying to understand what is the piece that they're not connecting to on the value, you see. This is another reason why in a different webinar, I shared with you that whole technique that you never put the price point out on the table until you understand what the customer's critical needs are. And if you do it too soon, you totally negate the challenge. Let me give you a quick example. And I love using this example, and I apologize if some of you have heard this before, but I use the example of an airline ticket. An airline flight is going to be comprised of people flying from point A to point B at a wide sundry of different price points. And if you think about this, if you are merely going to go visit a friend for the weekend, you will pay up to X price. And then after that, the friend just isn't worth it. Flip side is you may be a business person going to close a $20 million deal. You'll certainly pay a lot more to get on that specific flight because you want to be there. You see, it's the value. Price has nothing to do with it. So this is why when I hear an objection, I got to really come back and talk about the value you're going to get. Okay. Now, here's the piece. I'm going to restate the objection just as I heard it. I'm going to pause, because by pausing, many times the customer's going to jump in and say something. See, they're going to answer, and I don't have to say anything. Great. But B, I'm going to ask them for clarification, asking them that short question. Now, what I do then is I then build my answer, my response, based around the clarification that they gave me. Because now I've got a better response. I've got a better answer. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to respond, and I'm immediately going to use that to set up for a micro commitment. Now, what do I mean by a micro commitment? A micro commitment is where I get you to say yes, because what I want to do is I want to take, and I'm going to share with you a couple of techniques here in a bit, but your objective with the objection is to take the objection, answer it in a manner that satisfies the customer so you can move it completely off the plate. When I can do that, then I've gone a long ways towards being able to move myself closer to the sale. So what I want to do is I want to use the answering of the objection as my micro commitment. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, what do you mean by a micro commitment? You may raise an objection. I just don't think that much inventory is going to be right for us. Okay, that's an objection. Or we can't receive this order unless you deliver it to us in this pattern. So then you ask for clarification. Help me understand what are some of the issues that you're having on the receiving end. See, now I'm getting them to explain that. So then what I do is I sit there and I'm going to give them an answer. I'm going to say, was I able to answer your question regarding inventory needs? Yes, I was. Great. So have we got that issue now taken care of? Yes. What did I do? I just got a micro commitment that issue is taken care of. Now, here's the whole challenge. This is where salespeople make a big mistake. Customer raises an objection, and we kind of dance around it. We dance around it, and we kind of give an answer, but we don't really want to give an answer, and we just try to move on real quick, and we move on to something else. But the customer's sitting there saying, wait a minute, he or she didn't answer my question. You know what's interesting? The trust factor comes down dramatically. I use objections to increase trust. When I answer objections as the way you want to have them answered, it may not be the response that you're looking for, but I answer them genuinely. I try to create value with it. What am I doing? I'm raising the level of trust. It's amazing how many times I've been in situations where I have watched salespeople have a lousy presentation, and that's okay, lousy, but they answer the objections very clearly, very cleanly, getting the micro commitment, and they go right to the close. because the customer feels that, whoa, they've answered my questions. In fact, this is one of the reasons why I use the line, hey, the best presentation ever made is the presentation never given. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply ask you questions. I'm going to ask you questions. And that's going to begin to guide the discussion. Somebody raised the question, can you give the link to other seminars you've mentioned? And I apologize on that. I really don't know offhand, but if you go to my YouTube channel, Mark Hunter, with the Sales Hunter, and open up, and you're going to see, because all these webinars, they're like 45, 50 minutes in there, and you're going to see various titles in there. I've got about 300 of them there, and go through them and grab some of those. So I apologize, I don't have the exact one. Now, back to this whole thing. I take this objection, I answer it, I get you your micro commitment. Now, I'm always going to then end that micro commitment with another question that's going to put out a trial close. Because I want to, and again, this always be closing, ABC, has come under attack a little bit. And I think it's a false attack. I think it's a false attack. I think we should always be closing, and we always be closing, because what we're doing is we're getting micro commitments. And if I get a satisfactory micro commitment, why shouldn't I go ahead and try to use the assumptive close and go all the way? Yeah. Now, let me go to the third piece of what I want to talk about, and that is really the role you play. You physically play in answering objections. We've all been in a situation where we've been talking to somebody and they're answering, and you go, that is a bold-faced lie. That lie just doesn't connect. And I'll tell you what, it's where your body language very much syncs back up. Now, some of you may say, Mark, all my sales are really on the telephone. How does that work? Well, believe me, it's amazing how your voice comes through on the telephone. Your tone comes through on the telephone. This is why I'm a strong advocate. If you're on the telephone for any length of time, you use a headset. I always use a headset. So I can talk with my hands. And what it allows me to do, it also allows me to be a little more flexible, because it allows my body language. I can use my body language on the telephone, which comes through on the phone. Now, let's talk about a couple of things. When I'm answering an objection, when I'm hearing an objection, what should my body language be? If they are throwing out an objection regarding around price, for instance, price, and I'll do some very specific stuff talking about price here in a bit. I don't hesitate to flinch. I won't hesitate. I won't hesitate in the least bit. But I'll tell you in a bit how to play that. Use body language. At the same time, somebody may throw out an objection. Don't let it throw you. The best approach is, when the customer throws out an objection, is to show no change in your body language. Same way in your voice. Don't cut the customer off if you're on the telephone. Let them talk, let them share. This is the gate agent. Think about the airline gate agent. What do? Customers at the counter venting. They just let them talk. Okay? Now, here's the whole piece. I'm going to keep my body language the same, my voice the same. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use silence as a way to answer it. Now, this is a really great strategy. You're going to see some very powerful people do this. What do? You raise an objection, and they're kind of waiting for you to jump back in real quick with this pat answer. But you pause. You wait. Silence is an amazingly strong and powerful tool. Why? Because it now says to the customer, she's thinking about him. He's thinking. And not rushing back in. Now, I am going to come back in, but remember, I come back in by restating it as I heard it, asking for the clarification question. Why? Could you explain more? How come? And I'm going to let them each time, I'm going to use the silent technique. Why? Because it allows me to give them the impression that I'm listening. And it really is, it helps improve my listening. Third thing, the eyes. Eye contact is so critical. I have more professional buyers, procurement officers, and so forth tell me that one of the tools that they use to distinguish trust among salespeople is eye contact. And if they can't see eye contact when they're answering a tough question, they know it's a bold-faced lie. Same thing even on the telephone. And I can't give this enough focus at all. But you stay focused as to who you're talking to. Don't let your eyes drift. The hands. I'm going to share with you. This is without a doubt the most powerful technique regarding handling objections. And I talk about this in negotiation because if you think about it, objections and negotiation, very, very similar. But it's what we call the steepling approach. And I'll swear they do this. Now, I have some arm rests on this chair here. And on my elbows planted there, you could have them on the table. So this only works in person. What you do is the person shares with you an objection. And you simply go like this. And you lightly tap your fingers together. And then you open up and you speak. It is as if you're Moses coming off the mountaintop with the tablets. It's powerful. Now, you don't do this right when the customer is sharing with you the objection. No. The customer shares with you the objection. You wait for just a moment. You pause, 2-second pause. You play back to them as you heard it. You ask for the clarification question. You let them respond. Then you use the steepling technique. This steepling technique, I'll swear if there's such a thing as CEO school, they teach this. You watch CEOs. I've seen Jeffrey Immelt do it. I've watched Jack Welch do it. I've watched any. I've even seen Trump do it, President Trump do it. They do this. They open up and they speak. There's something about this when you just lightly are tapping your fingers together. It's as if you're pulling your thoughts together. You're pulling your ideas together. Then you suddenly unveil. And what's even more powerful is when you unveil your hand, you begin to speak. You do it a little bit softer. Because what does it do? It pulls people in. There's something about the soft delivery of the response that comes across as more sincere. Now you got to watch it, because if you come across too soft, you come across weak. Come across too strong, and you're going to be like, well, they're not listening to me. So there's that gauge. There's that balance. But I'll share with you very simply, it is amazing how using your body language when you hear objections are absolutely powerful. Now, let's talk about price, and let's talk about really stupid objections, okay? Now, one of the things that I want you to do is, first of all, really stupid objections. Should all objections be responded to? No, there are some that are absolutely stupid. I still never forget to this day, I had a customer. I was an account manager years ago, and he was going on vacation. And he wanted me to somehow, for some reason, give he and his whole family passes to Disney World, Epcot. I don't know why I would ever do that. And I totally ignored it. Sometimes there are absolutely stupid requests that you totally ignore. Because what will happen is if you respond to it, you wind up getting into a trap. But here's the whole piece. You have to know when to respond. 95% of all objections you will respond to. If you do not respond to them, you set yourself up for being in trouble. You can, however, sit there. Customer raises an objection. Great piece. Great question. Would you mind if I shared with you just a little more information? I think as I answer it, I think it will help answer the question. Never sit there and say, oh, I'll get to that in just a bit. Don't. You shut them down. You ask them their permission to answer the objection later on. Now, let me get into some real key pieces, because the number one objection we always hear is around price. The first time the customer objects to my price, I totally ignore it. I literally ignore. I didn't even hear it. You don't even respond to it. You sit there and say, well, wait a minute, Mark, that flies totally in the face of what you said earlier. Yeah, but here's the whole deal. We have created a society that asks for the discount. We simply have created a society that asks for the discount. And many times especially in B2B, people will sit there and just ask, hey, your price is too high, or can I get a discount? And they're doing that only because they've been told by their boss, make sure you ask for a discount, make sure you ask for a discount, make sure you ask for a discount. See? So if you just ignore it, they can at least tell about, oh yeah, I asked, they didn't have them, so that's okay. And it's amazing how, I don't know, 15, 20% of all price objections, discount objections, go away simply by just totally ignoring it. And what happens is if you play into it, suddenly then it's like a stupid Twitter battle. It's like a stupid Twitter fight. If any of you are on Twitter, you watch some people go back and forth fighting. It's like, this is stupid, dumb. But here's what I do. I wait for you to object to my price twice. When you object to my price twice, now I respond. But I don't respond. And this is the one deviation to handling objections. This is why it's so important for me to go through this. You do not respond by sitting there, could you tell me why price is too high? No, I don't. What I do is I come back and I ask them a question regarding the most critical need that they've shared with me. This is why I say I can never put the price on the table until I know what your critical needs are. Because got to know what your critical needs are, because that's really why you're buying. That's why because you're not buying anything, you're investing. So what happens is I may be selling you computer software. Okay. I may be selling you a CRM system. Okay, great. I'm selling your company a CRM system. And you go, your price is, wow, you guys are so much higher than everybody else out there. And I ignore it the first time. You raise it a second time. Then I'm going to come back and I say, what are your targets from a productivity issue in terms of managing the pipeline? Because you may have told me that productivity is one of the critical issues. Managing the pipeline is a critical issue. You see, what I do is I want to get them focused on their most critical decision. I've shared before this example, but I'll share with everybody this example again. I had a CEO of a company call me and wanted me to be engaged with them to speak at their national sales meeting, a large event. His first question was, your price was too high. I ignored it. He came back about 30 seconds later and said, yeah, it's just too high for us. And I immediately came back and asked him a question regarding the competitive nature his industry was in and how his salespeople were losing a tremendous amount of sales. He began answering the question. And then he stopped and he said, that was really good. I asked you about price, and you got me thinking and talking about my most critical issue. Yeah, I closed the deal. But you see, what did I do? I didn't respond with price by discounting price. This is what happens. So many people respond by that. They simply sit there and discount price. Don't. Yeah. So let me walk through this again real quick on handling price objections, discounts. First time you hear it, you ignore it. Second time, you come back and you ask them a question relative to their most critical need. And however they respond, you then ask them a follow-up. And you get the question going in that manner. And then you immediately come back and you do an assumptive close at the full price. I will never discount my price until you've rejected me at least twice in two different settings. Okay, you may reject me in one phone call, and then second phone call you reject me again. Again, I've gone through this two-step process multiple times. Now I'll finally come back to you, and I'll give you a different product offering. But I'm not going to discount my price because of pricing integrity. But I don't discount my price. What I do is I change the product offer. You have to maintain product. You have to have integrity. You have to have integrity. Now, let me share with you 3 techniques as to how to respond to an objection and how to handle it as you set up for the next conversation. I call them the box technique, the closing technique, and the option technique. The box technique. If you think of a box, it's got 4 sides. The customer raises an objection. Okay, they raise an objection. That's the first side of the box. The second side of the box is where you respond to them as you heard it, and you're asking for clarification. Okay. The third one is where they are now giving their response to the clarification. And the fourth side of the box is now where you answer the objection. See, so what I've done is that first side of the box, they've given their objection. I've responded as I heard it and asked a clarification question. The customer responds, they give me their approach, their response. I answer the objection. And I ask for their approval. Did I answer? What did I do? I put the objection into a box and I can put it on the shelf and put it away. See, I can absolutely put it. If you're in a complex, large negotiation sale process, the box technique is absolutely gold. Second technique, the closing technique. This one really works in shorter, smaller sales. Customer raises an objection. Okay. You respond back, ask the clarification question, and then they respond, and then you go, if I can answer this, can we go ahead and close the deal? See? You literally set it up by saying, if I can answer this objection, if we can take care of this objection, can we close the deal? That's the closing technique. That is a great technique, because if you've gone through the sale process and you know you have that customer right there and they're ready to close, and this is probably the only one, boom, you literally go right from handling the objection into the close, period. Very good in shorter sale, more of a simplistic approach. The option technique. Option technique is great when I'm dealing with an egotistical customer. You're dealing with an egotistical customer, and they may have been one who has thrown out all of the objections. And somebody just raised the question, can you repeat the fourth box technique? I sure will. I'll go back and I'll repeat that for you. The option technique. This is really good for the egotistical one. What I do is this. I go, you state the objection. I repeat it as I heard it. Ask a clarifying question. See, every objection is handled the same way up to that point. Then what I do is I wait for their response. And then I give them two responses. And I go, well, great issue. Let me give you two ways that we can handle this. What am I doing? I'm giving them an option. I'm giving them an option. For the egotistical customer, this is a great way to close. Because guess what you did? You gave them an option, which immediately says that they make a commitment to one or the other. That's the micro commitment. And then I can go from there right into the close. Let me walk back through and share with you that box, the four-sided box technique again. Okay. Side one, okay, box, four sides. Side one, customer raises the objection. Side two, you repeat it as you heard it, asking a clarifying question. Okay. Side three, the customer responds. You're using the silence techniques all the way through. You let them respond. And then the fourth one, the top of the box, so to speak, closing the box, is your response. Getting a micro commitment, putting it away. And again, I love the box technique for complex sales. I like the closing technique for simplistic ones. And I use the option technique when I'm dealing with an egotistical buyer. Now, here's something interesting about the egotistical buyer. I'll find that many times the egotistical buyer is going to throw out multiple objections just to push your ego. So what I'm doing is, by playing back into their ego and giving them options, I'm forcing them to be involved. And you know what's interesting? Many, many times it actually winds up pulling them down, their ego down. They park it and they become more objective in how they answer my questions. Now, these are many of the things I wanted to walk you through but it comes down to a couple very critical pieces. And go ahead and let some questions fly. If anybody's got some questions, let them fly now. Here's a couple things that I really want you to be concerned with. One, start with the right prospects. If you are finding yourself with too many objections, don't necessarily think you got to change your presentation. You may need to change your prospects. If you are winding up with a lot of objections, what I want you to do is I want you to be recording them. Okay, these are the objections I tend to hear. Because what you may find is there's an easier way to be answering those along the way. But here's what I found. And I do this a lot. I might be in a very comfortable situation with a customer. And I know they're going to raise this objection. I know they're going to raise this objection. For instance, I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of travel. And one of the questions that I always hear is the dates or, travel plans. How do you travel, etc. Okay. And I know that's going to come up. I could address that up front, but I don't. I don't address it up front. Now, here's why. By allowing the customer to raise the objection, they own it. They own it. And they take more ownership. So don't necessarily think, just because you always hear this objection, I got to somehow change my sales process. No, don't. Allow some objections to be in there. Because it does two things. A, it keeps the customer engaged, and B, it allows them to have ownership. Okay, a couple of examples, or a couple of questions. Victor says, can you give me an example using the option technique? Sure, option technique. Let's go back and we'll say that I'm selling a CRM system. And it's a rather complex, and there's some customization, there's some consulting work that's going to go along with it. And you say that, you know what, I just don't think this system is laid out right. So I walk through that. So I ask them, well, what do you mean by that? And then I say, well, let's look at two options here. Option one is you could buy the system and have your IT department, your own sales team, do all the installation. Or we could have a consulting group come in and help you put it together. Which would be better for you? You see, what I've done here is I've taken this issue where they don't quite feel it's right, okay? I've now shifted it around a little bit, put two options on the table. And what am I doing? I'm getting them involved. And by getting them involved, I'm inviting a micro commitment, and I'm getting them to create some ownership, okay? Somebody else raised a question. Mark, I missed the first 30 minutes. Will you be sending a recording? Yes, I will. I sure will. Everybody will get the replay. You'll get the replay by way of the email from Webinar Jam. And I also post these out on YouTube. So you can go to my YouTube channel, and a lot of people say, hey, I want to share this with other people. Great, go for it. Just go to my YouTube channel, Mark Hunter, or The Sales Hunter. You'll find it there. And you'll find the webinar, and feel free to pass that link along to anybody and everybody. Now, let me come back and let's kind of wrap this up here. I want to talk about objections and your motivation and your attitude. Never allow objections to be seen as demotivating factors for you. Because think about this for a moment. If you are not getting objections, you will be replaced by an app. Think about that for a moment. Think about this. If what you sell is so simple, then you're going to be replaced by an app. But B, more importantly, if I'm not getting objections regarding price, my price is too low. If I'm not getting objections regarding value, my price is too low. If I'm not getting objections, my price is too low. You see, I want to get objections, because what does this do? It allows me to help create and shape a better product. And when I can create and shape a better product, I'm going to be much more successful there for you. Now, I'm going to wrap this up here in just a bit, but hey, this event is brought to you again by the folks at infofree.com. Check them out. The databases that they offer. In fact, it's funny, I'm going to be in their offices tomorrow. But I encourage you to check out, because if you're looking for prospects, the ability to tailor, these guys can really do it for you. Now, back to this whole piece and one other piece. Right now, the book, High Profit Prospecting, Amazon is having a blowout sale. The Kindle version is $2.99. Grab the Kindle version. Grab the Kindle version for everybody on your team. You say, I don't have a Kindle. Download the app. You can put it on any device you have. You can put the Kindle app on any device. But grab the Kindle copy. The Audible copy, in fact, I had somebody email me this morning that said they got a free copy of the Audible copy by just trying Audible. And they love it because they have Automobile University, that great Zig Ziglar line, as a salesperson. They're in the car all day long and they're listening to the book, and they said they were loving it already. But hey, grab that right now. My whole purpose here is to help you be able to sell more effectively. Now, what does this come back? I'm going to come back to the question I opened up this program with. Summer slump. Here's what I found. You can't afford a summer. Some people say, well, if my business falls off a little bit in the summer, I'll be okay. Yeah, but it may be okay now, but it's going to come back and bite you in the fourth quarter. I see too many people, when I sit down with people at the end of the year and do an end of the year assessment as to their business, many times people are missing their number. And when we go back and look at it, it's because during the summer, they allowed themselves to get into a slump. You can't afford to get into a slump. Don't walk away from the harder to get sales. And people walk away from the harder to get sales in the summer because, they got a lot of objections. Don't. You've got to keep the pedal to the metal. You've got to be building your budget for this quarter. You got to be building your quota, your numbers to get to 120%. Hey, we're also just a couple weeks away from the end of the second quarter. Same thing, okay? Again, I look at it, I see people, I took a week off for spring break with the kids. Well, guess what? I wound up getting into it. You've got to be ahead of the game. Hey, my name's Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. You've got all the information out there on the YouTube channel. In fact, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Grab the book. Do me a favor. Would you leave a review? Would you leave a 5-star review of the book? I really do. I'm remiss in not asking for the order. For you not only to pick up the Kindle copy, but to leave a review. I really could use some reviews because it's a great way to help tell other people. And like I said, this event is brought to you by the folks at InfoFree. And I want to say thank you very much. And somebody just raised another question. How did you say the listener obtained the Audible copy? Oh, you go out to Amazon.com, and I guess it's free if you do a 30-day trial of Audible.com. And again, I apologize. I'm not quite sure how that works. Jump out to the website, but go grab it. Hey, thanks again. I very much appreciate it. Keep the emails coming. Let me get my contact information. There's my contact information. Shoot me emails. Connect with me on social media. Grab the book. Leave me a review, please. Please, would you do that? And let's keep in touch. And let's make this an incredible year. Thanks so much. Great selling.